Let's go ahead and look at what a family pedigree is. So a geneticist collects as much information as possible about a family's history for a specific trait. So here we're looking at freckles versus no freckles. So looking at grandparents, give you that information. Having freckles looks like to be white in color, circle for female, square for male. No freckles is going to be colored purple. Same gender differences. We have the parents, aunts, uncles also showing those traits, and then we also have a third generation, so sisters. I'm showing you images for those sisters. Looks like one of those sisters has freckles and the other one does not. This is called a family tree, assembling all this information and what relatives show what trait, what is their gender, kind of connecting to the offspring of which parents. This is called a pedigree. Because of Mendelian genetics, Mendel's laws enable us to deduce the genotypes for most people in the pedigree. There's some exceptions that I'm going to go over in the later half of the lecture, very simple exceptions that I'll just briefly describe. But Mendel's laws gives us this information, so we're able to deduce the genotypes for these individuals. So looking at this individual with freckles, so freckles is dominant. Having the freckles is very much a dominant trait. And so this individual with freckles, let me get rid of the pointer so that you guys can see, that's annoying. So this individual with freckles, because it's dominant, they could either be homozygous dominant, showing two uppercase Fs, or they could be heterozygous with a dominant allele masking the recessive. That's a possible combination. I don't know which one it is, but that's a possibility. The sister that has no freckles, because freckles, I'm telling you, it's a dominant trait. So because of that, the sister with no freckles, she must be homozygous recessive. She must have two lowercase f's. A trait that's not dominant does not imply that it's either normal or more common than a recessive phenotype. It's just simply going to be the dominant allele. So a lot of times students tell me, okay, an allele is dominant, therefore it is found most often in nature. That's not true. What you're telling me when it's dominant, you can see everyday life, not everybody has freckles. Freckles is dominant, but not everybody has freckles. So what I'm telling you when a trait is dominant or an allele is dominant, I'm just telling you that that trait is going to mask the recessive version, the recessive allele. Okay. Doesn't mean that it's more common out there. That term is called wild type. Wild type is the more common phenotype that is found. So some examples of a wild type versus a mutant. So a wild type allele is going to be the most common phenotype in a population. So here I'm giving you an example. Let me get my cursor again. Here I'm giving you an example of squirrel. Wild type, most common is going to be that brown color squirrel that we see. Mutant alleles or any other form of that allele that are not found most common. So here I have the albino version where we have albinism being shown. And albinism is just going to be masking that melanin pigment that we produce in order to show a certain color. So albinism is just not producing that pigment. That's a mutant allele. Or we can have this other mutant, melanistic mutant, where we're showing a hyperpigmentation of that color. That's a mutant version of that organism. Another example of wild type, here I have wild type penguins. They're wearing their tuxedos, so black on white. I can kind of see those cute little penguins waiting for their meal right there. That's wild type. The majority of them are going to show that kind of tuxedo coloration. I can see on the bottom corner there here, this little guy, that's an albino. That's a mutant version or a mutant variant, not found commonly, but can exist in a population. Here's another example of albinism. Really neat looking guy showing you that rare white moose. This was filmed in Sweden. So yeah, just not as common in a population. These are termed mutant alleles. The more common version is wild type, not dominant.